This is the fastest war humanity has ever seen. Not the deadliest, not the bloodiest, just the fastest. 2 nations, dozens of casualties, a palace blown apart, and a conflict that ended faster than most people finished scrolling TikTok. This is the unbelievable and honestly absurd story of the Anglo-Zanzibar War. A war so short the historians literally argue about whether it lasted 38 minutes or 40 minutes, because the entire thing fits inside a single episode of a sitcom. And the craziest part? It all started because one guy refused to get off the throne. Let's rewind to 1896. Zanzibar, a small island off the coast of East Africa, was a strategically valuable trading hub. Spices, ivory, gold, you name it, everything passed through Zanzibar. And because the British Empire had a habit of collecting territories like Pokemon cards, Zanzibar ended up under heavy British influence. Now, the ruling sultan at the time, Sultan Hamad bin Thawani, was actually pro-British. No problems, no drama. But then, he dies, suddenly, and suspiciously. Some historians whisper poison, others claim natural causes. But either way, the British immediately try to install their preferred successor, a guy named Hamoud bin Muhammad, who they could control. But before they can move in, someone else takes the throne. Khalid bin Bargash. Khalid marches into the palace, declares himself sultan, and locks the doors like he just called dibs on the whole country. The British? They absolutely did not approve. The British consul sends Khalid a message that basically says, hey, you have 2 options. Step down, or we will remove you. Khalid's response? He starts fortifying the palace with 3,000 soldiers, machine guns, and artillery pieces he absolutely was not supposed to have. He also brings in a royal guard unit and positions snipers on the rooftops. Snipers? This man genuinely looked at the entire British Navy parked outside his harbor and thought, yeah, I like my odds. Meanwhile, the British assembled 3 warships in the harbor, the HMS St. George, HMS Philomel, and HMS Raccoon. These ships are basically floating death machines armed with cannons powerful enough to turn a stone palace into confetti. They send one final ultimatum. Khalid, step down by 9 a.m. tomorrow, or we will open fire. Khalid? He sends back a message that literally says, we are not afraid. Oh boy. It is now the morning of August 27th, 1896. Crowds are gathering in the streets. British sailors are manning the cannons. Khalid's soldiers are loading their rifles. Everybody knows what's coming at this point. At 8:55 a.m., the British consul sends Khalid his final warning. He didn't reply. At 9 a.m. on the dot, nothing happens. The British wait. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds. Then, at 9:02 a.m., the British Navy receives the command. Commence fire. The harbor lights up. Explosions rip through the palace. Walls collapse. Smoke covers the city. Within minutes, Khalid's artillery is destroyed. His snipers abandon their positions. His palace guard falls apart. By 9:10 a.m., the Sultan's yacht, his escape plan, is sunk. And by 9:15, the palace is barely standing. With that, Khalid realizes the obvious. He absolutely has no chance. So, he does the only logical thing. He runs out the back door. Yup, the self-declared Sultan of Zanzibar flees the palace through a side exit and sprints to the nearest German embassy for asylum, leaving his army behind to surrender. What? By 9:40 a.m., the entire conflict is over. Total time, 38 minutes. The British install Hamoud bin Mohammed as Sultan, the one they wanted all along. As far as casualties, Zanzibar saw around 500 killed or wounded, and British had 1 sailor injured. 1. That's it. That's the war. Khalid stays in the German consulate for years until he eventually escapes to Tanzania, where he's later captured by the British anyway. The whole war becomes this bizarre footnote in colonial history, remembered mainly because of how ridiculously short it was. A 38-minute war, a palace blown apart, one very confident and very wrong sultan. History is wild, and sometimes absolutely hilarious.